So I think it was Peter Drucker once said that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and I think that's a great way to start this talk. And we're as Melanie kindly told us, that we're going to be talking about how culture shapes our daily working lives. But before we get into that, I think it'd be good if you could both just introduce yourself, why you're here, and what you do.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Jess Gosling. By day I work for the British Civil Service, but by night I run a women's collective which seeks to champion women out of social mobility issues, diversity, inclusion and the like. I'm here because I think culture is important. I spent 6.5 years abroad in lots of non-English speaking countries. As you can probably tell from my accent, I am British. And understanding, I guess, the fluidity of culture and why it's important and how to create a company and a community that really champions each other is really important for me.
Cool. Is that working? Yeah.
Perfect.
Hi, so I'm Jason. I work as the head of talent at Infinity Works, which is a engineering-led technology consultancy. Working for a consultancy definitely presents its challenges around culture, and we're a very rapid growth consultancy as well, which I think is probably half the reason probably why I'm here as well. Some fairly interesting topics about how we tackle that. We're very much on a learning curve. I don't think that we say that we are excellent at our culture, but we strive to be better every single day.
Perfect, thank you. So I think it might be good to, you said that you're, how you started the business, and you're an engineer, what did you say, sorry?
Engineering-led.
Engineering-led, sorry. And I think it'd be good if you talk to us about how that started in terms of why culture is important, the values, because you mentioned before that it kind of came a little bit later.
Yeah, so the business was founded just over 5.5 years ago with four founders, all male, and they set out more of a mission, which was to hire great people, to trust them to do well, and have a delivery-first approach with our customers, but have fun while doing so as well. And while we're at the very early stage of, I guess, being a startup consultancy, when we started to recruit more and more people a lot of people in a short space of time, we realised that there was lots of people coming from different backgrounds that maybe held different values, which meant we had to iterate our values, which contribute to our culture on a day-to-day basis. So we ran almost like a crowdsourcing sort of workshop for our people, just for them to talk about what the key values were for them and how they lived that value. So we collated all of the data. We created like a word board, like a word map of all the values that we had on it. We then developed and had an offsite where we took everyone. So that was, I guess, it started at the beginning, a top-down approach. We iterated a few years later, it came from a bottom-up approach, and then we had an offsite to discuss what would our core values be. So we had a lot, 10 values, which I look now at businesses, and to have 10 values, do you really live and breathe those 10 values day to day? I think if one person said they lived every single value day to day, they'd probably be bending the truth slightly. So we iterated again, and at the beginning of our financial year, which is in September, we take our whole business. So we've got offices in London, Leeds, Manchester and Edinburgh to Centre Parks, where we run a mini conference. And this year it was all centred around culture, values and also diversity and inclusion. And one workshop that was mandatory was around our values. And so there was 300 people in a room. And we said, could show of hands of how many people know our 10 values? One person put their hand up. Which we expected. So we ran, we had some technology to talk about. Again, the same process we did. What are the core 3 values out of our values once we've run through them that mean the most to you? And actually, it turned out to be sort of 4 or 5 that really stuck out for us. And at the moment, we are having another offsite with our leadership team to define exactly what those values are with some commentary and sort of how we live those values from listening to the people. So that's sort of been our journey so far.
Perfect, thank you. And Jess, obviously, if you could tell us a little bit about your experience. I think you said Growth and Grace Collective has been going for 5 months now?
Yeah, we're very much a baby.
Okay, but in that time you've now got 12 members of staff, you've done 20 events. So I was quite interested to understand if culture was something that you thought about from the very beginning, and is this something that you've put in place right now, or not?
So I guess you can see our logo at the top. Not very well, but I should have said it in white. But it's got like leaves and flowers coming out of it. So one of the biggest values for us is coming together as a community and championing each other. And a big part of culture for us is allowing everyone to have a voice, no matter what level you're at, no matter what role you are or what experience you have. You have just as much right to pay into the company values and culture. So we actually have a team of over, how many are we? We're over 12 now. We have kind of like satellite offices that we're working on in the US, Georgia, the Ukraine, and some other places. And it's just really kind of bringing the physical and the digital communities together. And that's what, we did something similar with the word map and some kind of initial scoping, but we're a non-industry specific network. So that means that every singular community that we seek to serve has their own priorities, has their own demands, has their own intentions, and their own cultural needs that they need to have met. Obviously including the diversity, inclusion, logistical, language, all of those other things. So we're trying to put a huge, it honestly feels like putting a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle together, but we're slowly chipping away at it.
And how do, it's an open question to either of you, how do you actually reinforce these values to make sure people are like living and breathing by them?
Okay, so I guess that our values, I think every business would want people to almost know what your values are, even before they've even spoken to you. It's maybe your shop window as a business, that maybe on your website or any white papers that are published, that what you do and how you operate incorporates your core values. So being I guess it really starts for us is that if you're looking at an experience, a potential employer experience, a candidate journey, if you will, where the values are, I guess, spoken about through a job spec, they're spoken about during a telephone interview, they are spoken about in the actual interview itself, and maybe competency-based questions around our values and experiences where maybe people might have lived similar values to ours in previous workplaces, to see if that fits into the way that our values that contributes to our culture. But I would say the biggest challenge that we have is that being a consultancy, certainly in our London office, 90% of our team work on site with clients in a completely different culture, potentially. So how do you live your values when you're in someone else's culture? And I've talked about top-down values, I've talked about bottom-up values, and actually it's almost that sort of middle management, middle leadership, which helps sort of, I guess, drive those values within our teams that we have working on site with our customers as well, and which helps because the middle management can have a relationship with the people at the top of the business, you could say, and also at the bottom. So we feel that those values being infused with our people from middle management works really well.
Do you have anything to add on?
I think for us, a lot of our team is remote, so I guess giving them a space that they feel valued, safe, and can buy into the value and the company culture that we're building, even if they're not physically in the room, is really important. I worked as a freelancer for over a year abroad, and it makes a lot of difference, especially when you talk about mental health, inclusivity, disabilities, all of it.
Okay. It seems like quite a few things. Obviously, Courtney was mentioning it, and the chap over here answered a question about it. How do you kind of like keep that culture when people are working off-site? What are you actually doing? What mechanisms do you actually have, or what are you actually doing for that?
I'm actually in the middle of drafting the Diversity and Inclusion Charter, I have 3 unseen disabilities. I'm dyslexic, I have ADHD, and I have anxiety, which is a bundle of laughs. And I guess from design, I've set up your Growth and Grace to embody what I would like other people to feel. I mean, there's the old saying of people don't remember what you said to them, people remember how you made them feel. And I want anyone who is a part of Growth and Grace Collective to feel like they are valued and that they are important no matter what level, what age, doesn't matter.
Perfect.
I think within Infinity Works, I mentioned that we are on site. However, we do have an office. We do have a home in London and all of our other office locations. And one of our values is technical excellence. And how do we drive technical excellence? Well, we are achieving technical excellence day to day in what we do in our jobs, but we also help our people become more technically excellent by running communities of practice within certain technical disciplines, where we'll have a subject matter expert within our business to be able to create a learning experience through interactive workshops at our office that people can get together at all different levels. Another one of our values is focusing on our people. We've got people from going into the diversity and inclusion side from all different types of backgrounds. And that's something that I think we are definitely, I would say, in the early stages of really, diversity and inclusion is something that we're very aware of, and we're taking action on that at the moment. So much so that's what our conference was centred around. And to make sure that we understood that and other people in the business were aware. At our conference, we ran one of the workshops with. Is anyone, show of hands, if anyone's heard of a privilege walk? Yeah, so it's so not many of you. So just to be sort of a high-level view, privilege walk is ultimately a walk where it can make people feel uncomfortable. And it's talking about asking questions of times where you might have felt uncomfortable in a scenario, or did you attend higher education, etc. And obviously a room full of diverse people have come from different backgrounds. And you might feel comfortable to take a step forward if you have experienced that, or you agreed with that, or take a step back. And what the mission of this was to actually encourage conversations of being uncomfortable, which again is focusing on our people, that no two people are the same, and appreciate that other people around you do come from different backgrounds, and make people and start to feel comfortable and create a more comfortable working environment for people as well.
Just to add to that, you just reminded me of something that we do lots of different things in 5 months. We've had 20 events, so there's lots to talk about and not enough time. One of the things that we're doing quite similarly to you guys is kind of establishing like 3-piece workshops where we will discuss an issue of like diversity in tech, or women in tech, or if you have an unseen disability, to really kind of, or hackathons, for example, to really combat like prejudice, unconscious bias, and kind of really, I guess, open Pandora's box to all of these different perspectives that you may not be subject to.
Okay, and this kind of falls in nicely to the next thing I wanted to ask. Something that Courtney mentioned was the fact that being in a tech business, as generally people like problems to solve problems, and they're on product hunt trying to find things. Do you use any form of technologies or platforms to help manage your culture? So I'll give you an example. At talent.io, we use a thing called Office Vibe. Obviously, it's just on how people might come in and have a bad day and vent, right? But it's a place where they can do it anonymously or non-anonymously, they can do it. I just wondered if you have any tools like that, or you have any recommendations for people.
I'm a super nerd for LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn.
Okay.
So we actually have a community group where people can ask for advice, share articles, ask for help. We also have a Slack channel, which we're in the middle of developing, but we also have like in-person meetups that are quite regular.
How do they work?
We literally choose a location, and we can choose a topic. If everyone wants to, we just run with it.
Okay.
Often we'll have a speaker, maybe a panel, and it just depends. It depends also on the needs of the community, because as I said, We have over 500 people membership now. We've had 14k impressions over 5 months. All of my team work full-time, including myself, so this is a part-time side hustle. And it's incredible what we've achieved, but it also has to be scalable and realistic.
Of course.
So as much as I can support and give, I also there's a balance. And I guess one of the tools that I've found that's personally for me in building up a culture that's been quite helpful is actually buffer. You guys are fantastic. Seriously. And also multilingual buffer. It's great. Hashtag, sorry. Shout out. We need to talk later. Sorry.
Yeah, we too have Office 5 in our business. We have lots of different Slack communities as well, that obviously in multi-location business, and our employees in even one location work in different areas is a good way for sort of communication and collaboration. But we also use the method of being together. So every month we have lots of different events, etc. But we have a monthly retrospective for the business where we talk about what is going well, what's going okay, and what we could be doing better. And as I said earlier, we don't claim to be perfect, but we always strive to be better. And it's a great opportunity for, also you can also do this almost sort of confidentially because you're using post-it notes and you can go anyone can put them on a board, or you can put them in a bucket and then put on a board. It gives the people a voice and actually then can create discussion as a group that actually, 5 of you have said that you're not happy or there's a problem with this. So then I guess the end result is that we then walk away with actions that when we get to the next retrospective, we can say to our people and our employees to say, look, you said that this wasn't going well, and actually this is what we've done about it. And then we'll start to see new things probably go on there, but actually what's really rewarding is when the things that we weren't doing well start to go on the areas that we are doing well on. So that's probably mainly for us.
Okay.
One more thing, Trello boards. Also Trello boards, get a Trello board.
And if you want to upgrade from Trello, look at Notion. Notion's even... Notion's also awesome. We talk about the nice things that we want to do, but sometimes there's some not so nice things where we have to maybe let people leave because we could be getting to the point where they're not necessarily conducive to the positive environment, not living the culture and the values that we want, and they've gone too far. Do you have any advice for people that have to go through that process or anything you can share with anyone?
I've been on the receiving and the giving end of this. So when I have a difficult situation, I try and internalize how I felt at that time when I was living there. And I think it should come from a place of respect. I'm very transparent, I am open book. And I do it, when you have a situation where something's not quite right, it could either be they approach you or they're not in the know and they think they're doing well, but it's not quite the right fit, and you have to bridge the conversation. I don't like starting that conversation. I don't like letting anyone down, and it's really, really difficult when you're a leader. You have to take those difficult decisions. So I guess when I've done this, and I've done this in a previous capacity, not necessarily within G&G at the moment, I'm very open with what is not working, and I will always try and find a solution for it first. If it is fatal, or not fatal, but if there is nothing else we can do, then I start looking at that situation. But I will always try and remediate the situation. Say if it was maybe, I don't know, someone sent around an email with a cat emoji, I don't know. Let's just say, not that would be a horrendous offence, for example, right? I don't know what it could
Gross
be.
misconduct, that
Gross,
is.
whatever it is. But I would always try to kind of mediate it and try and find a way to steer that person into a better place, rather than be like, okay, now we're done.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, we're all, if you have someone that's under your leadership, you also need to show leadership qualities and be respectful and open and transparent. It comes back down to the transparency question.
Okay.
And those are the things that I would have liked when I was in that situation and unfortunately didn't have.
Yeah.
I guess for us, we obviously want to to try and mitigate the worst happening, and someone leaving the business for X, Y, or Z reason. I think having a supportive culture within Infinity Works is really important. We have something called advocacy, where every person in the business has their own sort of peer advocate, which is completely confidential at the discussions that are there, unless you want to escalate the conversation and give your advocate the power to be able to do that. It's not about guiding someone's career, it's actually just having someone there to listen to you when things might be tough, or you might be stressed, and it might not even be work-related at times. And that allows us to sort of say, well, we can help you. The business can help you with this, or there's an initiative that we've got with this, or we can put you in contact with this. But it might be around work frustrations as well. So advocacy has been really good to help mitigate that. In terms of, there is instances where we also, while someone might not be performing, or they might be causing conflict in the work environment, we always, before we do anything, we always look at ourselves and said, what have we done to support this person? And that is always the first question that we ask. What have we done to support this person? Have we done everything in our power to support this person before the conversation escalates to another conversation? I think that's always the approach that we take to that.
And I was going to add just one thing following from what you said, is also looking at where they're coming from. So you don't know what might be happening outside of the working environment, like be putting pressures or alleviating something, and trying to get like a quite wholesome, well-rounded view of it.
Agreed. Perfect. Before we move on to Q&A, is there anything, if you could give like one bit of advice for people that are maybe like starting out, or this is a topic that's very high on their agenda, like what advice would you give in terms of
LinkedIn?
LinkedIn.
No, I swear to you. I'm soon to be giving LinkedIn workshops at the General Assembly. Shout out, I will be doing that soon, so you never know. Feel free to come. LinkedIn optimization is one of the biggest undervalued tools for companies and professionals. Seriously, use it. Learn how the algorithm works. Learn how to hashtag. Just, if you can learn to optimize your profile and how to use the whole platform, you will be surprised. I got this gig from LinkedIn. Just to showcase how awesome it is. And it's free. Don't do the paid one. If you can, great. But I use the free one, and it's fantastic.
I think for me, it's something that Courtney touched on earlier, and it's about iterating your culture and values. As a business grows, as a business scales, you're going to be onboarding and have probably a more and more diverse workforce. Times change. Feelings and emotions change within a business, and I think your values really need to change with the times as well, and with the people that are in your business. I think as well, to sort of make sure that a culture is fully bought in, is that a culture that doesn't come from as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't just come from the top down, it doesn't just come from the bottom up. It's got to be that everyone, that it's an inclusive decision on what your cultural values are, that promotes that moving forward. So that would be my 2 bits.
Can I add one more nugget? Because I said a useful tool rather than the nice spiel that you just gave. No, we did. I have LinkedIn really doesn't compare. It was really actually quite shameful. Not shameful. You know what I mean. I think mine would be speak your truth and feel confident in it. And yes, you should always be mindful of the context and the place and the time and how you give the message, but always feel confident that your opinion is just as much justified as anyone else's. I've massive imposter syndrome for a very long time, like literally a very long time, and it's something that we don't talk about when we talk about company culture and the need to fit in. Yeah, my mum calls me a steamroller, so go figure. Like, I'm very opinionated, and at times I've felt that I couldn't be my true self. I mean, every situation is different, and you can't be your true self in every situation, of course, but just knowing that you are valued and that you are important, and that what you feel is just as much justified as anyone else in that room.
Perfect.